Good evening, this is Jack from Charting the Markets, and this is the Bigger Picture webinar for the evening of Sunday, the 7th of September. My disclaimer, I do this for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you can take some what I'm doing and learn from it, transfer it to your own charts. I'm not here to issue trading signals. Right. Last week on Wednesday morning, I was saying that after this decline here, we had across the board buy signals, and we also had a nice looking bull flag on YM, and I was talking about a possible retest of the high on ES and SPX, and we've seen all that into the high on Friday. On NQ, ES, buy signal made target. NQ, buy signal made target. ES, we actually had a sell signal before the decline on Friday, and then that made target, and then we've come much of the way back up from there. On RTY, buy signal made target. Retest to the high on YM. The flag broke up, made the target just above, which was a retest of this high. We had a little sell signal that made target too, and then we recovered much of that decline. DAX and the STX, neither of them went up a great deal, and actually gave most of it back afterwards. So we will see how that goes. But in terms of the US indices, that was pretty strong. Now, that brings me to the stats for next month. So hang on, bear with me a second. Sorry, for next week. Right, now, okay, the stats for next week are actually pretty bullish. The stats for Monday neutral, on Tuesday 67% bullish, on Wednesday 76% bullish, and on Thursday 76% bullish, and Friday 57%. Next week is a strong week. We've also got the Fed, I think, and a possible cut in interest rates coming. So it should be an interesting week, and there is a general lean there in terms of the long side. Looking at NQ here, this is what looks an awful lot like a bull flag, which has broken up and has got a retest target at a retest of this high here in August, and I'm leaning towards seeing that retest. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts on the 60-minute charts. Okay, SPX, no current divergence, went back up, made a new high. We got a possible double top here, but obviously there's some room on the upside which we could go and explore. Looking at the Qs, no negative divergence there either. Here we've got a bull flag channel which hasn't broken up yet, but is a perfect bull flag channel. I'm leaning towards this breaking up and making the small distance 2.2 up into a retest of the all-time high. Looking at Dire, we made a full retest of the high. Possible double top setup here, of course, but I am wondering if this might go a little higher. On IWM, we have a slight break over this trend line here, but that went straight into a nicer alternate trend line here. That could break. We'll see. But the main thing I'm looking at here is the pretty decent possibility of upside on the Qs. We're talking about some historically strong week. I'm thinking there's some space to the upside, and we may well see that deliver. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture chart on the dailies and the 15-minute charts. And all right, looking at ES. No current divergence. Obviously, where we back tested the daily middle band on Thursday, and then went well away from it on Friday. On SPX, again, we saw the back test we actually saw on Friday on here, but at the moment that is holding. Unless we see some weakness that takes us below that, then there's no reason we can't go up a bit higher. Looking at Qs didn't get anywhere near the daily middle band, really. I'm leaning towards seeing a retest of the high. It's very obvious in terms of a target. Looking at the Dire chart, RSI 14 sell signal fixed. We tested the high here, possibly a nice looking little double top here. At the moment, everything's above the daily middle band, and there's nothing really that compelling suggesting this is about to go down. All right, let's look at IWM. Looking at the daily chart, we've got an RSI 5 sell signal fixed, which is interesting. I would note that we're getting closer and closer every time we make a higher high to this IHS target, which is a retest of the November 2024 high at 24304. The high on Friday was at 23968. That is getting really very, very close. I'm leaning towards that target being made, and that is the other target to the upside, which I'm thinking we might see next week. So we shall see how that goes. Looking at DAX, we didn't even make it back up to the daily middle band last week. So at the moment, this is still leaning bearish. And on Nikkei, we broke back above the daily middle band, and I'm wondering about a high retest here, but I do think this is probably topping out. We've still got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed. So we shall see. Overall, my lean is that we're probably going to see some bullish action next week. I'm not thinking it's going to go up an awful lot, but I am thinking most likely it will go up. All right, looking at DX. DX, we saw a retest to this low here. It's still a potential level top. I've rolled this into the December chart, and I've dropped off the head and shoulder target here, which was a little lower. But I wasn't really seeing the same sort of pattern set up. We do have a potential double bottom here, and that could deliver. Although I think there is a pretty good case for it coming down and retesting this low here from the July low. Looking at the bigger picture charts on the currencies. Let's just have a look at the smaller picture charts on the currency pairs first. USD made a higher high, possible alternate double top here. GBP USD looks like a flag which is breaking up with the target up here in the 136 area. Looking at USD JPY, this is actually a perfect bear flag channel. It's slightly oversized, but I am thinking this may well resolve down into a retest of this low. On USD CAD, keeping an open mind on this one, but I am wondering if we are forming a head and shoulders for a move down. On Australian dollar, nothing really to report here particularly. And NZ, nothing really there either. Possible bear flag forming, but not one with any kind of decent trend line at the moment. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. And on the daily chart, no current divergence. Really, what I'm looking at here is a flag which has broken down, and I'm wondering about a retest of the July low at 96.38. Bigger picture, we've still got the bull flag, we've still got the touch of this megaphone support, which could hold, but won't if we go back and retest this low at 96.38. But even if it does, I'm still taking this bull flag setup seriously just because it's a very nice setup. So, and I'm wondering if that might somehow deliver, even if there doesn't seem to be much fundamental reason for it to do so. Looking at USD, got a nice looking bear flag there too. Mirror image of the one we got, bull flag we got on DX. Daily chart, no divergence. We've really been trading sideways on the most of the currency pairs and the dollar, so this isn't the kind of thing which really generates much in the way of divergences. Looking at GBP USD, got a nice bear flag here, which again is a nice mirror image to the bull flag on the USD chart. We've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed on the weekly, nothing on the daily. Where would I be leaning towards seeing here? I'd be wondering about a retest this high here at 1.3789. Looking at USD JPY, nice looking rising megaphone here, and sooner or later I'm expecting us to make tracks down to test this support trend line down in the 116 area. So no particular sign of that happening at the moment. Again, nothing in terms of divergence. I'm wondering about this as a possible overall bear flag. Looking at USD CAD, very nice looking possible double top here. On the daily chart, no current divergence here either. We have a possible IHS which is broken up and hasn't invalidated yet, although it's come very, very close to going below the right shoulder. Looking at Australian dollar, still haven't broken up over this resistance trend line, which is something I've been watching for a while. Nothing really to say on the daily chart. NZ, again, we've got this compression triangle which has been running for 5 years now. So still in the triangle. Next obvious target within the triangle, if it's not going to break up, would actually be down here in the 55 area. So we will see how that goes. We've had 3 big lows there, 0.547, 0.551, 0.549. This looks like a descending triangle, which would lean bullish. So we'll see how that goes. All right, nothing on the daily chart there yet either. No. Okay, let's have a look at bonds. Now, bonds were looking very interesting last week. And this was because this flag that I'd been looking at had broken up, and we went up and made the target, which was a test of the early August high, and then it kept on going. Now, we might see some pullback here, but I am wondering about a breakout. Looking at the end, we had a nice looking pattern here, which has now failed. This looked nicer in terms on the on the September chart before I rolled it into December. But this is a potential breakout. So I was having a look at the bonds charts, and let's have a look at those now. All right, TYX. We are breaking slightly below the possible triangle resistance I was looking at. Now, this might be forming a larger pattern. I am wondering whether this might be forming a larger flag. Possibly if we were to make a flag channel, we could see a move down to the 46 area. We've been hovering in this area of sort of 47.5 to 51.5 for months. I'm not surprised to see a move down here. I think overall I'm still bullish, but I'm definitely open to changes if things do change. There is talk of a decline in interest rates next week. Fed putting down rates a bit, but I'm not sure that's going to make an awful lot of difference. Mainly because actually, if you look at the daily chart, the last time we were cutting interest rates was here. Notice anything about yields? They weren't going down. They were going up. They went up quite a lot, actually. And actually, we're pretty close to the highs we reached after that, and that was after the Fed cut 0.5%, which actually they didn't reverse later. So what will happen this time when the Fed cuts rates? I don't know. We'll have to see, but it isn't necessarily going to have much of an impact at all on the 30-year yield, which is TYX, or the 10-year yield, which is TNX. And if it doesn't have much of an impact, then as borrowing is based on these two yields, then it's not going to really have any impact on affordability or interest rates on loans. All right, let's have a look at the, we haven't got, because we've been moving sideways for a while, in terms of the daily chart, we're nowhere near really any divergence. So I'm watching to see how far this gets and whether the next low gives us anything useful to work with. In terms of TNX, we've been testing a support trend line for a while, broke that one slightly there. I've got a larger trend line here, which was also broken. I'm thinking this opens the way for the yield to go down a bit and for bonds to go up a bit, and I'll be very interested to see where that lands. In terms of the hourly chart, there's no immediate sign of reversal. There's no positive divergence. In terms of TLT, no divergence on the daily chart, and no divergence on the hourly chart either. Waiting to see where this goes, wondering if this could be an IHS breaking up. So we will see. Yeah, we will see. That's but there is a possibility here that this actually could run on for a bit. This has gone further than I expected it to go. All right, let's have a look at CL. Now CL went back down. We had a flag here. It broke down with a target at a retest of the August low, and we haven't quite made it yet, but we've got pretty close. Question is, what's going to happen here? Now, I've got two scenarios here. The first one is that we go down and retest the 56 area low, possibly setting up a double bottom when we get there. But that's not the only scenario, but that's favored by the setup here on HO, where we've got a flag which is bear flag which is broken down and is not close to the target yet, and would need to go down considerably further to get there. On RBOB, we had a head and shoulders here, and that has now made target. But really, I'm looking at the bigger picture charts, so we'll get to those in a minute. NG, we've got a little IHS which is broken up with a target in the 3.33 area. And it's been backtesting the monthly pivot and the new week pivot area, and we've got a possible little level top here maybe, but I'm leaning towards this being a bullish consolidation before this goes higher. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts on those. Now, WTIC. Bigger picture is we've got a wedge that's broken up, and I'm looking for a reversal pattern. What are our options for that reversal pattern? Well, the first one is we could go back, go retest this low, which is actually at 56.06, and set up a double bottom for what this overall setup would be leaning towards to being the next move higher. Looking at the looking at the daily chart, sorry, I'm a bit throaty today. I've got a possible IHS forming here. This wouldn't be a bad place for a right shoulder. We could form a little level bottom here. I am wondering whether we might see a move up from here. And whether this might be the IHS, and that is the second scenario here. We test the lows to make second low of double bottoms, which would be preferred. Alternatively, we've got an IHS potential IHS setup here, and we've got a potential IHS setup on heating oil as well. Ideally, that would go a little lower before breaking up, but this right shoulder low here would be acceptable. And this wouldn't be a bad setup, and this potentially could take us up quite a long way. Looking at gas oil, nothing like that on here, really. I'd be preferring to see the retest of the low on here. That's at 1.8552. I am wondering if we'd see President Trump talking about gasoline being sold for $1.85. Because that was the only reason that when we were in the 1.95 area back here, that's when he was talking about that on TV, being able to buy gas. I did wonder whether someone had been talking to him about gas oil futures and he just didn't understand. So wondering what we might hear on that. This on gas oil looks very much like a bear flag, setting up for a retest of the low, which isn't far below. But I'm leaning towards seeing that. Bigger picture, this could be a nested double bottom to go higher. All right, let's have a look at natural gas, where we've seen a nice little rally off the lows, no current negative divergence, but it wouldn't be hard to set up some. But really, I'm thinking that the obvious setup here, 3.13, 3.15, we've got a potential inverted head and shoulders forming here. We could see a pullback here and then a move up, and that actually would be a very nice looking inverted head and shoulders, which could then have a target in about the 3.65 area, which would be up here. That looks pretty good, and I'm wondering whether we might see that. Certainly, we are coming into a bullish area. I think the contract rolls in about 2 weeks, and from there, hang on, bear with me. Over the next 3 months, the rolls are assuming that we're going to see an increase currently at about 1.1. Now that's down from about 1.5 a few weeks ago. But nonetheless, that is a significant increase over 3 months, and we should see at least some of that feed through into the price. We shall see. All right, let's have a look at metals. Okay, metals. We've seen obviously nice moves on metals. I am wondering about a bit of a retracement here. We've got possible topping action here on GC short term. Nice looking potential little level top here on silver. On palladium, we've got an inverted head and shoulders, broke up here and failed. That would normally deliver a retest of this low here at 108.7.5. On platinum, obviously we broke the bear flag set up here, but I am wondering about seeing maybe a bit more retracement. And on HG, this still looks like a bear flag forming. It just hasn't finished yet. It's been forming now for a long time, about 5 weeks. It might take a couple of weeks longer. We shall see. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. And looking at gold, looking at the daily chart, no current, well, a tiny amount of negative divergence here, but it's nothing really worth the mention. I'd be looking for more really to call this as likely retracement time. We've gone up to 3,600, and at the moment, this is looking more like a breakout than it's looking like a double top. In terms of the monthly chart here, I do have a trend line that's fairly close here. I think we've not quite, yeah, we've got up 3,600. I think that would be in about 3,700 here. My preferred trend line and the bigger picture target would actually be up here, which is, well, at the start of 2027. It's hard to tell on the log chart, but at the start of 2027, this would be in about the 7,200 area. This I'd be calling maybe 6,000, but I wouldn't be expecting to see an immediate move there. I'm thinking that's a trend line that might be reached within a year and a half. We will see. All right, not a lot to say on the weekly charts, except we've got a possible RSI 14 sell signal brewing, and we've got an RSI 5 sell signal fixed, which on a really strong move up might fail. All right, looking at silver. Silver has been making tracks beyond the trend lines that had previously been more or less holding. I'm wondering if this is a breakup, and if it is a breakup, then it's pretty obvious next target area would be a retest of the all-time high at 49.51. Bigger picture, I have 3 highs in this area. I think the first high was at 49.49 or something. It was just below this high, which was then made about 35 years later. And then we saw a rejection there, and I think we're coming back for another try. And I think this time we've got a decent chance of breaking out when we hit it. At the moment, we're not quite out of possible trend lines here, but this is starting to look like a breakup, and I think it might well be one. In terms of the daily chart, no current divergence, but it wouldn't be that hard to set some up. I've got possible short-term trendline resistance up here in about the 42.8 area. Looking at palladium, we've seen a nice pullback. We're testing the weekly middle band, and we are holding it so far. We'll see how that goes from here. In terms of the daily chart, we've still got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed, and I'm still leaning towards seeing some more downside. Looking at platinum, on the monthly chart, we've got nice looking trendline resistance, and so far that is holding. Now remember, of course, platinum, palladium, more industrial. Silver's partially precious and partially industrial, mainly industrial. So it may be that all of those will go down while gold goes up. But I'm hoping that silver will see at least some of this. I mean, certainly I remember I was talking to one of my daughter's school friends a few years ago and singing the praises of and prospects of silver. Now, compared to some things like AI and so on, this is only up 3 times since then. I think I was talking to her when it was down back in 2022, 21, when it's down in the 14 area. But I think, personally, we've got up to almost 42 now. I still think there's a lot of potential upside in silver. All right, looking at platinum on the weekly chart, no current divergence, but if we see a retest of this high, which we're not that far away from, we could set up some nice weekly divergence on both the RSI 14 and the RSI 5. Looking at daily chart, we've still got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed, and if we do see a retest of this high, that could be setting up the second high of a double top. All right, looking at copper. I've got a pretty clear next target down here in about the 3.9 area. In the short term, this looks like a flag. And I've got another trend line here, which is currently in about the 4.05 area. When this flag finishes, we could retest the low and make a second low of double bottom, but I'm leaning towards it going lower. All right, looking at GDX. GDX, we have gone even higher. We're well beyond any trend lines now, and we're the same on GDXJ. The weekly sell signal failed. I am looking at some positive negative divergence rather on the hourly charts with the possible RSI 14 sell signal brewing on GDX and GDXJ. But at the moment, we're well beyond any trend lines that I had. So it's a nice looking breakout. All right, let's have a look at the commodities. Okay, KC, possible little level top here, SB. I was looking for a retest of this low here. That's in about 15.34 area. We've not quite seen that yet. I am expecting to see it. On CC, possible bottoming action here. Bit large for a bull flag maybe, but still a potential contender. If it doesn't head up soon, then I'd be wondering about a retest this low here in the 6,700 area. Looking at CT, CT, I was expecting to see a retest of this low here. We have more than done that. This is potentially the second low of a largish double bottom, which again is just part of an even larger double bottom, which is forming. I'll talk about that on the daily chart. Looking at lumber, weekly chart rather. Looking at lumber, I'm wondering about a possible IHS forming here. If so, we would turn back up pretty shortly here, and the target for that would be in about the 638 area. Looking at ZW, I was looking for a retest of this low. I'm looking just a little lower on this. I'll talk about that on the bigger picture chart. On corn, possible, I've got an IHS which is broken up here with a target in the 441 area, and we've got a potential little level top here which could set up a larger retracement than we've seen already. So watching that, and I've got more to say on the bigger picture chart. On soy, not forming a head and shoulders probably, I think, but I am wondering about further downside here. On soybean oil, potential little level bottom here, but nothing really suggesting that we're not going to see some more downside. Live cattle, looks like a bull flag forming, and lean hogs. We have retested this high here. We're poking slightly beyond this trend line. This is either a double top or part formed head and shoulders, or we may be about to break up over resistance here. We shall see. We've not quite retested this high, but we're near as damn it. We shall see how it goes. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. And all right, looking at coffee. Coffee, I am wondering about a retest of the high here. So we got pretty close, and this could set up a potential level top here, although it would be a large level top and probably larger than might make target. But if it was to sell up there and then reverse, then the target would be in about the 1.3 area. And as you can see, we've actually spent a lot of time in that area. That would be a credible target. Looking at the daily chart, we've got a weak RSI 14 sell signal fix. We've got a weak RSI 5 sell signal fix. Short term, I'm expecting to see some more retracement. Sugar, we've still got this big apocalypse at head and shoulders, setting up a potential move down to the 6.5 to 9 area. Wondering, short term, I'm thinking we retest this low, and we've got a potential for a small double bottom there. On the weekly chart, no current divergence, no real prospect of getting any. On the daily chart, we could get an RSI 5 buy signal brewing. This looks like a bear flag, and at the moment has broken down with a target at a retest of 1544, and I'm leaning towards that target being made, and it's almost been reached. Looking at cocoa, bigger picture, this looks like a huge double top, but it's actually too large a bit. So we'll see. In terms of the daily chart, we've got a possible RSI 5 buy signal brewing, and we've retested this low here at 7208. I'm wondering about this as a level bottom. We'll see how that goes. So it's a little oversized maybe, but we will see. If not, we could just continue down towards this big low here, retest this big low here at 6427. Looking at cocoa, wheat on the weekly chart. I wasn't looking at that one. Wheat on the daily chart. Okay, I was looking for a retest of this low here at 495.50. This is the wheat spot price, and it does differ from the futures price. But the spot price here, if we were to retest 495.50, it set up a very nice looking potential level bottom. And really, it's not quite the same unless you see the full retest. So we're very close to that, and I'm wondering whether we may see that this week. Looking at corn, RSI 5 buy signal fixed here on the weekly. We've retested the low already. I'm wondering whether this might be the second low of a large double bottom. Looking at the daily chart, RSI 14 buy signal fixed and hasn't made the full target yet. We have broken over declining resistance. Looking at soybeans on the weekly chart, no current divergence. We've broken over this declining resistance, falling wedge resistance. For a while, this was the one that hadn't broken up of the grains. RSI 5 sell signal on the daily chart has reached the possible near miss target. Possible short-term topping action, but if we were to have a head and shoulders here, I'd be leaning towards starting the right shoulder nail and then coming down from there. Looking at cotton, we've got on the weekly chart, we've got a weak RSI 14 buy signal fix. Here, we've got a wedge, it's broken up. I've got a lovely looking double bottom, and actually that is just part of a much, much larger double bottom here that could potentially start taking this back up a long, long way. This little tiddler here on a sustained break up over 73.21 wouldn't have a huge target. That would be in about the 89 area. But if we got up to here and broke with a confidence through 107, then potentially that could take us most of the way back up into the retest of this high here. We shall see. You can see that's almost exactly at the 50% fib, which is a great place to see a double bottom resistance when there is a possibility of a full reversal. Looking at lumber, I've got a nice looking double top here, and that's breaking down, and that's got a target down about the 360 area. A retest of this low here, and this does look an awful lot like a bear flag, as I've been saying for, well, all year so far, and back into last year. This looks like a bear flag. If this breaks down, then the bear flag target would be a retest this low here at 352.50. As you can see, the double top is here, and we've broken down. We will see how that goes. All right, great. Let's have a look at cryptos. Right, now the week has the week finished yet? No, not quite. But at the moment, it's looking as though we're going to be seeing. Last week, we saw a close below the weekly middle band. Now, this is the key area I've been watching as the most important support. A breakdown would open up the double top target in the 99 to 100k area. So far, I think we've got. Okay, yeah, okay, we have actually moved into the new week, in which case we closed well back above the weekly little band. So far, that is holding a support, and the RSI 5 sell signal has now reached the possible near miss target. Looking at the daily chart, no current divergence. We're slightly above the daily middle band. We're still kicking around at the daily middle band in effect. I've got that currently at 111,501. No, we're slightly below it, and we're currently at 111,101. So we're slightly below it. If we are going to see a retest of the high and rejection, because either really we go down to 99 to 100k, at which point I'd be leaning towards seeing a retest of the high, or we just go directly to the retest of the high. To get to the retest of the high, we need to get back over the daily middle band, and then we need to get back over the 50 DMA, currently at 114,917. At the moment, we're struggling to get back over the daily middle band. Looking at the hourly chart, you can see the very nice looking double top here. This could just be a bear flag forming before we go down to that target. What I would say is we had a couple of sharp declines last week, and crypto really didn't react to either of them particularly. That was interesting, and with a bullish leaning week coming up next week, I'm wondering whether we'll see a break up. All right, let's have a look at Solana on the weekly chart. Looking pretty solid, holding up pretty close to the all-time high. Sorry, to the recent highs. Obviously not the all-time highs. At 217.94. On the daily chart, no current divergence. On the hourly chart, no current divergence either. We have got a potential little level top here. I was thinking this might deliver if Bitcoin broke down from the double top there. Well, which it has done, but actually made some progress towards the target. But at the moment, Bitcoin's not heading towards that target, and it may not. Rejects back up into the high, and then that target gets cancelled. Ethereum, we've got, I think we've actually got an RSI 5 sell signal fixed here. That does weight more towards the downside here, but we've actually got the same looking, well, not quite the same double top, but a similar double top here. And again, it's not showing any sign of breaking down. If this was to break down, this would have a target at about the 31.70 to 33.30 area. But at the moment, it's showing no signs of breaking down. But this is a possibility for next week if Bitcoin starts heading down to that target and the back test of 100k. We shall see. All right, great. In that case, I think that's a wrap. I will catch you guys again on Wednesday morning, and everyone take care.